Just back from Pakistan, Robert Greenwald, Brave New Films, his Twitter account, at Robert Greenwald. I think I've got that right. And bravenewfilms.org. Robert, good to have you back with us.
Thanks, Ed. Good to be with you and good to be home.
This is a tough discussion for Americans. You know, we want to protect the country. We want to make sure that we're protecting ourselves and taking out these terrorists who are threats to the country. Lo and behold, Mike Boyle, who was on Obama's counterterrorism group in the run-up to the election in 2008, said that the U.S. administration's growing reliance on drone technology was having, quote, adverse strategic effects that have not been properly weighed against the tactical gains associated with killing terrorists. You were in Pakistan. Open question, Mr. Greenwald. What did you learn?
Well, I learned a tremendous amount. And by the way, it's not just Boyle. You know, McChrystal, U.S. Army General McChrystal, has come out warning about dangers with drones. The former ambassador to Pakistan, Cameron Munter, has warned about it. And Obama's former U.S. Director of National Intelligence, Dennis Blair. So I was there, and I was interviewing people for the documentary we're making about drones, Ed. And, you know, I was not there an endless amount of time, but I talked to 30, 40, 50 different people. And there's a combination of deep concerns we need to have. The first one you raise is the national security concern. Is this making us safer? And there's a very, very strong argument and significant evidence it is, in fact, not making us safer. Because we are using drones at a country, by the way, we're not at war at, we need to remember, violating sovereignty. And as Imran Khan, who's running for president, told me, yes, there are maybe 100 bad guys here, but in the process, you have now alienated 1 million people in the tribal areas who are furious, pledging revenge, and are now enemies of the United States. The drones are not a simple solution to all of our problems. And I think that it's important that we have a discussion about that and know what's being done in our name.
Civilians are being killed innocently.
Oh, yes. I mean, I was there. I interviewed young men. I interviewed a father whose mother had been killed. He brought me a photo, and he held it up to me. He said, look, this through a translator, of course. He said, this is my mother. She's a 65-year-old woman. She's not a terrorist. She was killed while working in the fields. A young boy talked about his friend who was 17 years old who'd been killed. A father talked about his brother who had been killed. And it was very emotional, deeply troubling. And even if you go to the stats, Ed, you know, the number, remember, this started as a program to get so-called high-value targets. And the number is somewhere between 2 and 2.5 or 3% at most of high-value targets. The rest are either innocent civilians or low-level folks who are not an imminent threat to the United States of America.
Well, how are they being killed? How are they getting caught in the line of fire? Are we just randomly taking shots at people that we see on a screen that we think are terrorists?
Well, no, it's not random. There's a couple of different ways. There is the New York Times did a very significant piece, and Dana Priest has a lot about it in her book. You know, there's the kill list. The problem is, how do they get that information? Let's assume for a moment that the drones and the pilots are technically accurate. There's another discussion to have about that, and we have found a drone pilot who's talking to us for our documentary. But let's for a minute assume the drones are technically accurate. Where do you get the information? Well, we have no eyeballs on the ground in this area of Pakistan. So what we are doing is we're bribing people on the ground, local tribesmen. They are then giving information to ex-Pakistani military who are passing it on to the CIA. And often, as we found in Afghanistan, Ed, with the night raids, and as we found in the imprisoning people in Guantanamo, when you offer significant bribes to these cultures that are not particularly sophisticated and where there can be tremendous animosities, people are turning in neighbors and enemies. So the drones are hitting their target, but the targets are wrong because they're based on the assumption of bribery is one problem. And the second problem, there's something quite horrific called signature strikes. which are devised, again, this is a program, we must remember, run by the CIA against countries we're not at war with. And signature strikes are if you see a pattern of behavior, if you see a group of men who look suspicious, that can qualify for a strike, even though none of them are on any lists. And there's a very infamous story about in Pakistan, a group that met for a jirga, brought together. They had permission of the Pakistan government in Dadakal, and we launched a drone and killed 40 to 45 village leaders and elders who were sitting out in the open in an area, and our CIA folks determined this was a signature strike.
This is coming with the stamp of approval from the president. And this is a story that hasn't gotten much attention. Where do you think the president is on this? Is this just going to continue? Is this our international policy for fighting terrorism? Thinking that, well, you know what, there's going to be some civilians down there that are going to get hit, but in the long run, we're safe.
Well, I think that, all of us who believe in the president and want to believe he's doing the right thing, we'll never know what's the president, what's Brennan, what's the CIA. But the fact that so many high-level former administrative folks are coming out warning about the program, and the fact that there's beginning to be finally some controversy around it, I think leaves the possibility and the hope that if all of us do our job, as we've seen, look, the president was elected by us, but on some of the key issues, immigration or LGBT, or on the great work you and others did on protecting Social Security, there needs to be pressure, and we need to say we want our country safer, we want to protect national security, but using drones against countries that we're not at war with is creating tremendous potential for blowback. Remember the Times Square bomber, why was he there? The quote in court was, drones don't differentiate who they kill, therefore I'm going to kill anybody I kill.
Mm-hmm. Administration officials have argued that they are useful, though the Pentagon's most senior lawyer, Jake Johnston, recently admitted that the United States was heading for a tipping point beyond which it should no longer pursue terrorists by military means because the organization that Congress authorizes the military to pursue in 2001 had in effect been destroyed. In his study, Boyle said President Obama pledged to end the war on terror and to restore respect for the rule of law in U.S. counterterrorism policies. And in the arena of some, such as Mr. Johnson, he is suggesting that the United States is breaking international law by doing this. Is that the sense that you got on the ground?
Well, I was mainly dealing, Ed, with people who, and it was very moving, by the way, at the end of almost every interview, they would turn to me and they would say, would you please tell President Obama not to drop the drones? We are peasants, we are uneducated, we are poor people. I mean, they literally had the sense I could walk into President Obama's office and have that discussion with him.
Well, Karzai is on the Hill today. What is his position on this? Now, you spoke to the man who's going to run for president against Karzai, I understand.
No, I spoke for the man who's going to run for president in Pakistan.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, these drones attacks are taking place in Afghanistan as well.
Yes. Well, in Afghanistan, it's a different situation in that it is, there has been a war there. The thing in Pakistan and Yemen and Somalia is there's no war going on. And can you imagine if another country decided there were some bad guys that they wanted to take out who were in our country and they sent drones over? The Pakistan government is furious about the drone strikes. And that's a country that has nuclear weapons, that has 180 million people. That's a significant, and that's why I think so many of the establishment figures are speaking out. Yes, we may be getting a couple of bad guys, mainly low-level bad guys, but in the process we're helping to destabilize Pakistan, and we're making our national security much, much worse and much, much harder in the long run.
Where's the president stand on this? Is he on record in any interview, to your knowledge, that talks about drone strikes?
He's had one or two. Again, the whole thing is ludicrous because the CIA has said it has to be a secret program. Everyone knows it's not a secret program. There should be accountability. There should be transparency. The president did say on the Jon Stewart show, of all places, rein me in. And just like he said early on,
how do you interpret that?
That he wants pressure from the other side, from people who say, no, this is not the right policy. We need to counter the CIA. We need to counter people, Ed, who believe that we can kill our way to safety and security.
Yeah.
We've seen it over and over again, and it doesn't work.
All right, we'll continue this discussion tonight on the Ed Show. Robert Greenwald, Brave New Films, Twitter account @Robert Greenwald. Great to have you with us, Robert. Appreciate it. Thanks you so much. We'll see you tonight. You bet.
Okay.
A discussion I think we need to have. BraveNewFilms.org. They do fabulous work. They do documentaries such as this, just back from Pakistan. Lots more coming up here where America comes to talk, the Ed Shultz Radio Show. Stay with us.